What
Right.
I do is the channeling, which I allow an entity or a group entity to use my body to give messages. The group entity that I use is called the band. And it's
Mhm.
interesting that the band is what they would say is a band of knowledge, a circle of energy, and they consist of a multitude of beings who really, as they will always say, they're a bunch of thinkers. Okay, and they're thinkers. And I feel hesitant about saying this because it's like, who are you to be doing this? Some of the people within this group are Albert Einstein and Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Tesla. I mean, there are a number of beings that they come through, but they speak in one voice. They speak as the band, and
Mhm.
they named themselves, not me. They said, "Oh, we're the band." And so
Mhm.
I have been channeling the band for well over 20 years.
Wow.
And so I do that on a regular basis. I'll channel for people or for groups, but they really always have this message of practical help and how you move forward again in your life in this physical form because
Right.
they're in the non-physical, so they have a lot more freedom than we do.
Welcome to Oh Shit, I'm Dead, the Legacy Podcast, the show where we ask the big question: what will they say about you when you're gone? Each week, we sit down with icons, trailblazers, and legends in the making to dive into their stories, scandals, and the legacies they're leaving behind. And now, here's your host, the video godfather himself, Lou Bortone.
Hey, it's Lou, and we are back with another episode of Oh Shit, I'm Dead, the Legacy Podcast. Hi, Willow. How are
Hey,
you?
hey, Lou, I'm good.
Today's guest is Willow. Is it Siebert? I should know this after 15 years, right?
Cybert. Cybert,
There you go. I got it right. We've only known each other for what, 10, 15 years.
at
So
least.
we go back a ways, but I've been really looking forward to chatting with you because you have such an interesting background and skill set. And I'm going to basically ask you all the mysteries of life. And in the next 20 minutes, you'll help me sort everything out, right?
Sounds like a plan.
Awesome. So first, tell us, because I know you have several different vocations and things that you do. So tell folks about what you do and how you identify yourself.
Okay. It all depends sometimes about the day of the week or the time of the month. It depends upon how
Mhm.
I'm identifying myself. But I think mostly, if I were to say at the core of who I am, I gotta say a spiritual being who connects to spirit, who connects to those who are not in a physical presence. That has been my life's work. That has been my life's journey. But I do it in a multitude of ways, from doing readings for people to doing channeling, which I'll get into in a little bit, and just accessing information that you can't find on Google. And
Right.
so it's just that's been my life's work, and I use that in many different forms. I do hypnosis and past
Hmm.
life regression so that I take people back into their lives that they've lived before. And all those are really to help people understand who they are today and how to move forward in their lives.
That's
So
perfect and way better than I could have described it because I really want to get into the juicy stuff like the past life regression and things like that.
cool.
But I know you do hypnosis, you do a bunch of things, and you also do channeling with group that you call the band. Can you talk a little bit about that? What channeling the band is?
I will. First of all, channeling in itself, years ago, they used to call them seances, where people would sit around in a darkened room around and they'd hold hands, and somebody would be like a medium, and a spirit would come in and speak through their voice. But of course, in those days, if you see them in the movies, the wind is blowing, the curtains
Hmm.
are moving,
Spooky.
the spooky, the candles are flickering, and it's interesting. We've moved on to what we call now channeling, which is the same kind of thing, except that I don't have to do it in a dark room. I don't have to do it with candles blowing and the wind making everything spooky. It's very normal. Okay, it's very normal for me, but what it truly is like we have all these beings that are simply in a non-physical form. It's like this when you die, the "Oh, shit,
Mhm.
I'm dead." Yeah, what it really means is I'm not in a physical body anymore, but I'm still here. And so
Mhm.
you find people who can pardon me, that can be a medium who will have somebody come through and They can give you information and messages about a loved one. I do it a
Hmm.
little bit differently. What
Right.
I do is the channeling, which I allow an entity or a group entity to use my body to give messages. The group entity that I use is called the band. And it's interesting that the band is what they would say is a band of knowledge, a circle of energy, and they consist of a multitude of beings who really, as they will always say, they're a bunch of thinkers. Okay, and they're thinkers. And I feel hesitant about saying this because it's like, who are you to be doing this? Some of the people within this group are Albert Einstein and Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Tesla. I mean, there are a number of beings that they come through, but they speak in one voice. They speak as the band, and
Hmm.
they named themselves, not me. They said, "Oh, we're the band." And so
Hmm.
I have been channeling the band for well over 20 years.
Wow.
And so I do that on a regular basis. I'll channel for people or for groups, but they really always have this message of practical help and how you move forward again in your life in this physical form because
Right.
they're in the non-physical, so they have a lot more freedom than we do.
Yeah, I love that, and I know we've been working together for a lot of years on that. And I was going to ask, and you said they do speak as one voice, but can you approach them with specific problems or questions, or do you just feel like this is what I'm hearing today?
Yes, specific questions, absolutely. Now, they can help individuals. Individuals can ask questions about their personal life or what's going on in the world or whatever. And they always come through again as one voice. I
Hmm.
don't necessarily know that I hear it. I just know it. And I just open my mouth and the words come out. So
Well,
they're available to help individuals as well as collective groups. And the one thing that I find is interesting is every time that we'll have a group channeling session is that somebody might ask a question, but it seems to be very pertinent to most everybody in the group. So I don't know how they do that. It always comes out that way.
that's cool. So it's like almost like a spiritual chat GPT. So,
There you go. Absolutely. And the interesting thing is when I am doing the channeling, when somebody asks the question, pardon me, I feel, what I see it as is we're in this like a boardroom, like a meeting room, and they're all
mhm,
sitting around the table, and I'm sitting at the table. And a question comes in, and I see these beings, these people, discussing about what the answer should be. And for
mhm.
me, it's like a 5-minute discussion. And
Wow.
and there have been times when they've wanted me to say an answer, and I'll go, I don't want to say that. They just say it. Well, but the time between when the question is asked and the answer is given is just seconds. But
Mm,
to me, there's been this distortion in time where it's taken them
wow.
5 minutes to come up with the answer.
Yep. That's cool. Yeah. Do folks ever come to you and say, okay, the band is awesome, but I really just want to connect with my dad who's been gone for 10 years or something like that? Is that a whole different line of,
That's a little bit different line. And I don't define myself as a medium. I'm a psychic, and all psychics are mediums to some extent, but that is not my forte. If somebody wanted to really speak to their dad and find out, then I would suggest go find a medium, go find a reputable medium. And there are a lot of them, and they call themselves evidential mediums because they really do have evidence. They come up with stuff that you just blow your socks off. But
um,
for me, I get messages about family members, not just to the depth that an evidential medium.
wow. Yeah. So you pretty much this group of thinkers called the band, and that's what, and how often do you do that? Do you do monthly or just as it comes? Or,
Yeah, normally, and we're getting back to it once a month. I
mhm.
channel through Zoom,
Yeah.
and I put out the message that we're doing it. We're starting, and typically it's the third Thursday of the month,
Mhm.
and starting in February, we're back to that.
Yeah.
But also, it's for instance, my aunt just passed away about a week and a half ago. Actually, her service was about a week and a half ago, and it was in Indiana. Now, my aunt is part of my spiritual family. So you
Yep.
see, my dad, that was her brother, my dad and her, they were raised in a spiritualist church. There are
Mhm.
actually these things that have been going on since the 1800s.
Wow.
And so they got raised with being able to get messages from spirit or to do hands-on healing.
Yeah.
And when I went back to Indiana for the service, I did a channeling for the family. It's just like whatever people need. When my family gets together, it's typically okay. One of the nights is about a channeling.
Yeah. And you told me, because I know we'd done some videos together not long ago, and you said that you realized this and started when you were very young, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was
Hmm.
interesting because that just mentioned my dad's side of the family, but my mom always did what was called automatic writing, which
Yeah.
is basically spirit, instead of coming through the voice, comes through
Hmm.
paper and starts writing. So at the very young age of probably 7 or 8 years old, my mom is doing automatic writing for some family members. And I thought, Mommy could do this, so can I. So I got the
Yeah.
pen and the paper, and spirit started coming in for me. So
Mhm.
I started doing that very young. And
Yeah.
then as we started in our family, when we'd have relatives and stuff, we'd do, my mom would do the writing and I would start getting message. And one time I said, Mom, do I have to write it down? Because it's already in my head. And she says, just say it.
Yeah.
So that's how I progressed. But we used to have seances or channeling when I was a teenager. We'd find somebody that could go into a trance and have a spirit come through and speak to us. So it's been going on in my life for a very long time.
That's excellent. And it was so much fun doing those videos with you and digging deep on some of that stuff. So coming back to the idea of legacy, like this, I did this podcast almost, I just want to talk to some really cool people, and this will force me to get out of my shell a little bit. So it's selfish reasons for doing the podcast.
It's
But
great.
when you think of legacy, you probably have a different perspective than most folks. What do you think about that?
I think for my legacy at this point, it's interesting because I've been recently thinking about, okay, being in the final quarter of my life as we all look at ourselves. And I said, and I want this last quarter to be my best quarter. And so it's going to mean no holds barred. What
Yeah.
I mean by that is I want to teach and show and talk to as many people as possible about spirit, because
Mm.
it's not about, it's like the topic of this is, "Oh, shit, I'm dead now." It's, "Oh, shit, I'm still alive." It's like a sort of a different thing. So if I can reach as many people as possible, and what I love doing is working with people who are just beginning to be aware of it's, I'm having these little, like, I'll see a shadow off in the distance, but there's no real shadow there, or there's no real being there. I get a lot of that.
Yeah. Mm.
And it's so being able to work with them to help people develop their intuition, because we've all
Mhm.
got it,
Right.
develop their ability to connect with those that are have crossed over into another form. That
Mhm.
would be my legacy, to go off and to be able to say, "Yeah, she touched as many people's lives as she could and made a difference in helping people not be so afraid of death."
Yeah.
Because it's just we're just not in this body.
I know that's
And
the big thing that like, when I hit the big 6-0, I'm like, "Oh, man, you're not gonna be here forever." And,
right, so what do I wanna do? And I'm not willing to waste my time on things that just don't matter, that you did when you were in your 40s and your 30s and
mhm,
your 20s. It's okay, do everything that's real and
yeah,
real for me. That's where I'm at.
that's cool. And then talk a little bit about, because this part really fascinates me, and we've talked a little bit about this before, but I just have the sense that I am absolutely fascinated by ancient Rome, and maybe some would say obsessed. I spend a lot of time in Italy if I can. I have this just weird sense that I've been there before. I don't know what I was doing, but when I go to Rome, I feel like I've been here before. Is that just like a deja vu thing, or could it be a past life kind
Oh,
of thing?
more than likely, it is a past life. Absolutely.
Mhm.
I always believe that. It's people come to me to have a past life regression for typically one of all 4 or 5 different ways. One
Yeah.
of those is exactly what you have just talked about is I have this uncanny feeling about Italy or ancient Rome, or I'm just obsessed with ancient Chinese or Japanese or Native Americans. Native Americans, there's a lot of
Right.
Native American energy, especially here. And so that's one reason that you go and you check out his past life, because it's all part of you. We are just this compilation of many lives. of many knowings. It's again, if you want to talk about Google or encyclopedia or something, one little chapter of it, but it's part of a whole big thing. So for you to be really interested in this, like I would say, find somebody that can do a regression for you. Go back and see what it's like. Go back and see what's that message,
Right.
because you are probably bringing forth into this life things that you want to, let's say, clear up. We can call it karma, but karma is really just learning. So that's probably why you're there, why
Mm.
it keeps coming to you. But other ways are people have fears and phobias. Why am I so deathly afraid of water? Or I can't eat this food or whatever. And that's another reason. Another reason people come in from past lives at this point, and especially as we get older, they want to know what their purpose is. What am I here to do? Because I don't want to get to the end of my life and not have accomplished.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And do you think that there's something like, okay, that sense that I have that there was something before, is that supposed to teach me something about this life? Or like, feel like
Well,
I'm probably making up for mistakes I made in past lives, right?
it could be a multitude of things, because, and it might be the other piece of it is that a lot of times we come back in family circles. We bring forward people in our lives who our mothers may have been our brother at another life,
Mm.
or your sister could have been your husband. We come back because we create these learning lessons. Maybe I really did a really horrible thing to my sister in a past life. And so we come back to live them this. So there might be a piece of that for you in your calling to find out more about ancient Rome that you did. And maybe it's about forgiveness. Maybe you did something in that life. And
Mhm.
so you keep bringing this forward because it's time for you to forgive yourself and let it go.
Yeah. So crazy. And then how is that different from just somebody says, oh, I believe in reincarnation, I'm going to come back as a toad or
From
something on that?
everything that I have learned and experienced, you can come back as a toad.
Mhm.
I don't know why you'd want to, but it's not just spirit that happens in the human form, because you can, now we're going to get crazy. You can come back in other dimensions, other planets. A lot of people have this sense that they're not from here. That it's really this sense of this whole life is very foreign to me. And it
Mhm.
typically is that they have been, on another planet. We all have
Yeah.
planets, dimensions, different kinds of energetic forms.
Mhm.
This place we call Earth is just one big experiment. We get to come in. It's the only place in town where, you get to play with emotions, good and bad, emotions and free will. I mean, you get the choice. So a lot of us don't make good choices. So we come back again, but you can go anywhere. And it's truly not a matter of, it's like because a lot of people say, when I die, I don't want to come
Mhm.
back. They're tired. They don't want to look. Once you've been gone, time shifts, because
Mhm.
time is not the same, as we on Earth see it. We created time here to have some kind of record of our lives. But
Mhm.
when you're in a non-physical, there's no time. 200 years can pass in Earth time, and it only feels like a blink of an eye,
Yeah.
and you still get choice.
Oh, that's good because I don't want to come back as a toad. It's all linear. So it's okay if I crap out in 2080, that's way too long, but am I going to come back in 2051 and start again? Or is it just like the slate is wiped clean and you can be anywhere, anytime?
And you choose it. Yeah,
Cool.
you
I
choose
always
it.
say that I was born 10 years too late because I really feel a strong kinship and pull to like the hippies and the Laurel Canyon and all that
Yeah,
music.
yeah.
And besides the Rome stuff, I feel, oh man, I should have lived it like just a little bit earlier. And then I would have had all those, I would have had Woodstock and the Beatles and all this. Cool.
And so part of that is, this would be a topic for another day, but you can live multiple lives in multiple times at the same time. So who knows? You might have already been there at the same
Wow,
time.
awesome. That's so cool. And I like to wrap up with, I want to make sure if there's anything else you want to talk about, what events, things that you're doing. But I also talk about, okay, there is an ending and typically there's whatever people do at the end, memorials, funerals, whatever. I want to have a walk-off song I haven't figured out exactly what it is yet.
Oh.
But if you had a walk-off song, like not the song when you're going on stage, the song when you're leaving the stage.
And you had asked me about that earlier, and I hadn't thought about it, but just a line from a song just came through, and I think this is it. And it's "Here She Comes Again." So
Yeah.
whether it is I'm coming back, in the spirit, or I'm coming back and I feel like here she comes again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's cool. And tell us about your book and things like that, where we can find it.
Yeah, it's part of my fourth quarter. It's okay. I've got so much information that needs to come out. So I've just recently published my first of many teachings of the band.
Yeah.
And you can find that on Amazon. It's there now under my name is the easiest way to find it. But I'm in the process of creating journals with quotes from the bands and other more material, because it's really interesting as I go and look at what I have done over the past 20 years. They look at it and go, holy cow, there's a lot of stuff. And it's the evergreen information that is just good for people to really help them move through life and to really look at what's beyond.
Yeah.
And because this is not all there is.
Mhm. Thank goodness. I know, and I like a football game. It's you say we're fourth quarter. It's okay. You got to make this count because
This is it. So you're going to play full out.
yeah,
And so I am sorry back to channeling. So you can find out more about it if you go to channelingwithwillow.com. That's probably the easiest way, but you can reach me there and just get on my mailing list and be part of the channeling. Come and find out what it's all about.
that's awesome. So good to chat with you, and we could
Good
go
to
on
chat.
for a long time with all this stuff because it's
Yeah.
pretty wild and really fascinating. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing with us. And your website so should we send them to the Channeling with Willow site?
Channelingwithwillow.com. That'll work. Okay.
Awesome. All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Lou. Okay. Bye-bye now.
Thanks for watching. Oh Shit, I'm Dead, the Legacy Podcast. Please subscribe and tell your friends about the podcast, and do it now while you're still alive and kicking. Check out other episodes at ohshitimdead.com.